The morning it all began, I was in the kitchen making coffee, just like I had done every day for the past 37 years. That kitchen had held every part of my life. Liam's childhood fevers, homework sessions at the worn wooden table, quiet moments when I cried alone after his father left us. Every corner of that house carried my love and sacrifices. Every mortgage payment had been a choice to give Liam stability. Every repair I did with my own hands, even when I was exhausted from work. It wasn't just a house. It was my history, my heart. Liam sat at the table now, the same one I once used to teach him how to count. He scrolled through his phone like it all meant nothing. His wife, Charlotte, was bustling around, packing up boxes. They'd moved in 6 months ago after her company downsized and they lost their apartment. I told them it would be temporary. I believed them when they said they just needed to get back on their feet. Liam's consulting business was picking up again, and Charlotte had found a position with a medical startup. They spoke often about expansion, funding, a brighter future. "Mom, we need to talk," Liam said, not even looking up. I placed my coffee cup down. It was the one he had gifted me for Mother's Day 10 years earlier, with "World's Best Mom" printed in fading letters. The irony didn't escape me. Charlotte looked over and cleared her throat. "It's about my mother, Cora. She's been diagnosed with early-stage dementia. The doctors say she can't live alone anymore. She needs a stable environment." I nodded slowly. "I'm so sorry to hear that. Have you looked into assisted living? I know it's expensive, but there are some wonderful facilities. Sunset Manor is very well regarded. My friend Helen's mother-in-law is happy there." Liam finally lifted his eyes. "That's the thing, Mom. We can't afford any of those places. Charlotte's cutting back her hours to take care of her mother. It's going to be tight." "I understand," I said gently. "But surely there are programs, Medicare." Liam's voice cut through, sharper now. "We're not asking for advice about our finances. We're telling you what's going to happen." Charlotte stopped packing. She couldn't meet my eyes. Liam leaned back in my chair and crossed his arms. "Charlotte's mom is moving into the master bedroom. We've already cleared it out. You'll move your things to the garage." We set up a bed, a small dresser, and a space heater. I stared at him. "The garage? Come on, Mom. You always say you don't need much. Family matters more than stuff, right? Now you get to live that." His words hit like a punch. Charlotte had frozen, holding a plate mid-air. "Liam," I said quietly, "this is my house." He laughed. "Is it? When was the last time you paid a mortgage bill? Or bought groceries? We've been covering everything. We're practically your landlords." "You told me to stop contributing," I said. "You wanted to help me save." "Yeah. And now we need that help returned. You're 62. You don't work. You read, you garden, while we've got real needs to take care of. Charlotte's mom needs real care. A proper room." I looked around that kitchen. My herbs on the windowsill. The fridge covered in photos from decades of life. Liam's graduation, Christmas, weddings, everything we built. Now reduced to a discussion about garage space. "When?" I asked. "Today," Charlotte said, barely audible. "She arrives this afternoon. The doctors said it's better to make the transition quickly. Less confusion." "For her," I repeated. "Yes," Liam said flatly. "For her." I stood up, but my legs felt unsteady. At 62, I didn't feel old until that moment. I felt invisible, disposable. My own child had planned this without even asking. "I raised you in this house," I whispered. "And now you're helping us raise our family," he said, standing like it was noble. For a brief moment I thought he might hug me. Instead he just placed his hands on my shoulders. "Mom, you said you didn't need much. Now's your chance to prove it." The manipulation in his voice was so smooth, so rehearsed. I almost admired the cruelty of it. He was using my own words against me. Words I'd said in love, in wisdom, now twisted to justify pushing me out of my own home. And Charlotte, sweet, quiet Charlotte, who once called me her second mother, said nothing. She just stood there watching it happen. "I'll need time to pack," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We'll help," Charlotte offered, but her voice was empty. "No," I replied. "I'll do it myself." I walked up the stairs, one slow step at a time, into the bedroom I had slept in for more than 30 years. As I opened my closet, I could hear them whispering downstairs. Words like equity, expenses, financial sense. As if my being displaced was a perfectly reasonable transaction. As if the $2000 they spent to convert the garage justified the betrayal. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the antique dresser my own mother had left me, the reading chair by the window, the spot where I had watched Liam learn to ride his bike. Soon, it would all belong to a woman I barely knew, who had been in my home only twice before. And I, the woman who built this life, would be living beside lawn equipment and paint cans. But as I folded my clothes, something inside me shifted. It wasn't grief. It was steel. Cold, clear, and immovable. Liam wanted to teach me a lesson about simplicity and sacrifice. Then he'd get one back. A lesson he'd never forget. The garage was exactly what I expected. Concrete floors, the smell of oil and dust, spiderwebs in the corners. My father's old workbench was still pushed against the wall. They'd placed a twin bed where my car used to park. A plastic dresser sat awkwardly near a box of holiday decorations. Charlotte had hung a curtain across one section and called it privacy. "It's actually quite cozy," she said, setting down a box of my clothes. "And look, you have your own entrance through the side door. Complete independence." "Independence," I repeated quietly. Liam walked in with a small TV, the one from the guest room. Not the good one from my bedroom, of course. That was staying for his mother-in-law. "All the comforts of home," he said proudly. "And we're saving a fortune on heating. The house stays warmer without the master bedroom to worry about." I said nothing. I'd learned long ago that arguing with Liam was like reasoning with a storm. Pointless. That night Mrs. Williams arrived. A small, fragile woman who clung to Charlotte's arm and spoke in sharp, fast Mandarin. She looked around the house with the eyes of someone choosing what to keep. Charlotte introduced us, smiling too brightly. "She says thank you for sharing your home," Charlotte translated. Sharing. That's what they were calling it now. I retreated to the garage and closed the door. Through the thin walls, I heard furniture being shifted. My dresser dragged across the floor. My bed frame disassembled. Voices floated down. Mrs. Williams speaking excitedly, Charlotte laughing. A happy sound that pierced straight through me. I sat on my narrow mattress and opened my laptop. Liam wanted to play with money and power. Then I needed to understand exactly what I had signed 6 months ago when they moved in. When I gave him authority to help manage my finances. I had signed a power of attorney, giving him full control over my financial affairs. It had seemed harmless at the time. He was good with numbers, had a consulting business. I trusted him. Now I saw the truth. He had access to everything. My property, my investments, even decisions about my healthcare if I became incapacitated. And worse, my own pension and social security were being funneled into a joint account he had opened to help manage expenses. The bills were being paid from my funds, not his. The mortgage, taxes, utilities. Every dollar had come from me. Liam was using my money to make it look like he was supporting me. He had built a lie with my own resources. Brilliant in the most despicable way. Heard footsteps. Quickly I closed the laptop. Liam appeared at the door, proud as ever. "How are you settling in?" he asked. "Fine. Just so you know, Mom, Mrs. Williams has a strict routine. Morning meds, physical therapy, mental exercises. It's important the house stays quiet. Especially in the mornings." "What about the kitchen?" "Yes. Of course you can use it. Just coordinate with Charlotte. She's doing most of the cooking now. Special dietary stuff, you understand." I understood perfectly. I was being erased from my own life. One room at a time. "There's a mini fridge coming," he added. "And a microwave. You'll have everything you need." Everything I needed to disappear. That night, I lay on the hard mattress, listening to footsteps above. My old room was now a clinic, filled with pill bottles and hospital machines. The room where I had once recovered from kidney surgery, the kidney I gave to Liam, now served someone else's health needs. Around midnight, I heard their voices in the kitchen. "She's taking it better than I thought," Charlotte said. "I told you," Liam replied. "Mom's always been practical about these things. She raised me to be independent," Liam continued, his voice low and confident. "She always told me to make hard choices when necessary." Charlotte hesitated, then said quietly, "Still feels like we're taking advantage." "We're not," Liam said sharply. "We're managing a difficult situation. Her mom needs medical stability. We need financial stability. And Mom needs to remember the world doesn't revolve around her anymore." That was the truth. Not the gentle justifications, not the concern for medical schedules or heating costs, just Liam putting me in my place. He'd planned it. The power of attorney, the joint account, the charm he used to convince me he was helping. All of it had been leading to this quiet takeover. And the bait he used was my own love. But he had made one mistake. He thought 20 years of being a devoted mother had made me weak. He thought I'd take the humiliation just to avoid losing him. He didn't know me at all. I opened my laptop and started making calls. The next morning I woke early, as always, and stepped into the main house through the side door. The kitchen was filled with the smell of tea and supplements. Mrs. Williams sat at my kitchen table, sipping from my favorite mug. Charlotte moved around her like a nurse, lining up pill bottles and vitamin packets. Liam leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. "Morning, Mom," he said, not looking up. "How'd you sleep?" "Fine." I moved toward the coffee maker. Charlotte turned with an apologetic smile. "Oh, so sorry, Cora. Mom's medications need to be timed exactly. We just need the kitchen for about an hour every morning." "An hour," I repeated. "It's for her adjustment," she explained gently. "The doctors said change can be hard for dementia patients." Liam looked up finally. "There's instant coffee in the garage. Charlotte picked it up yesterday." Instant coffee. In my own home. I said nothing and returned to the garage, closing the door softly. Through the window, I watched them bustling around. Charlotte pouring supplements into a smoothie, Liam typing on his laptop. My kitchen now belonged to someone else. So did my bed. My room. My home. I sat on the edge of my bed and called Janet Morrison, my lawyer of 20 years. "Janet, I need to review some documents." She listened as I explained, her voice calm but serious. "Cora, you gave Liam a very broad power of attorney. He controls your finances, investments, even medical decisions if you're declared incompetent. Can I revoke it?" "Yes. As long as you're mentally competent." "Could he contest that?" "If he tried, he'd have to prove cognitive decline. But your records don't show anything of the sort." Next, I called Dr. Patricia Williams, my nephrologist. "Cora, are you feeling any symptoms?" she asked. "No, I'm fine. But I need to understand. Does financial power of attorney give Liam access to my medical records?" "Not unless you signed a medical power of attorney too." "And you haven't." "Good." I pause. "Cora, from what you're describing, this may qualify as financial elder abuse. I'm mandated to report it if necessary." "I'm not asking you to report it," I said quickly. "I just want to know my options. You're in excellent health. You have full rights. If anyone says otherwise, they're lying." I stared out the window at Charlotte walking her mother around the yard. Mrs. Williams moved slowly, like her bones were hollow. But I saw something else. How heavily she relied on Charlotte, how much effort it took just to cross the grass. My next call was to Harold Williams, Charlotte's brother and a venture capitalist. I remembered him from their wedding, quiet but sharp. "Mrs. Cora, everything okay with Mom?" he asked. "She's fine," I said. "But I need to talk to you about Liam." I laid it all out, the garage, the finances, the power of attorney. He listened silently. Finally he said, "Jesus. Charlotte told us you offered to let Mom stay. That you were excited. I never agreed to be pushed out of my room. Do you have documentation from before they moved in?" "I do." "Good. 'Cause this sounds like financial exploitation. And if he's using Mom's condition as an excuse, well, that makes it worse." "What would you do?" asked. He was quiet. "Honestly, I'd burn it all down. But it's easy for me. I'm not his mother." I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. That was exactly what I planned to do. That afternoon I made one last call, to Marcus Webb, the private investigator Janet recommended. "Mrs. Henderson," he said professionally. "You want a deep dive into your son's finances, correct?" "I want to know everything," I said. "His clients, taxes, investments. The last 2 years. Especially the last 6 months. What's your goal?" I looked out at my house, where Charlotte was organizing medication on my antique dresser, where my son sat smiling on video calls, pitching financial advice to strangers. "I want leverage." Marcus didn't flinch. "Understood. I'll need a $5000 retainer to begin. I'll transfer it today," I said. That evening I sat in the garage, listening to the clatter of forks and laughter coming from my dining room. My family, at least the one Liam now claimed, seemed perfectly content without me. I was the ghost in the walls, the silent figure no longer welcome at her own table. At 9 p.m., Liam knocked lightly on the garage door. "Hey, Mom," he said as he stepped inside. "Just checking in. How was your first full day?" "Educational," I replied. He squinted, picking up the tone. "What do you mean?" "I learned a lot today. About my legal rights, my finances, medical privacy. Very educational." He stiffened. "Mom, you're not thinking of doing anything rash, are you? Because if the adjustment is too difficult, we could look into some senior communities. Social activities, support systems. People your age." There it was. The threat behind the kindness. Comply or be warehoused. Hidden away. "I'm adjusting just fine," I said, smiling faintly. "Don't worry about me." He studied my face, clearly trying to read something. Fear, guilt, confusion, but finding none. He relaxed. "Charlotte's really grateful, Her mom's been happier already. You're doing a good thing." After he left, I turned back to my laptop. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I began organizing everything. Statements, files, passwords, documents. Marcus would have his report within the week. Janet was already drafting the revocation of power of attorney. Dr. Williams had agreed to prepare a written medical evaluation confirming my competence. By the next morning I would move to phase 2. I would learn everything about Liam's business. His clients. His lies. His real reputation. He had underestimated me. He forgot that the same strength I once used to protect him could be used to destroy him. A week later, I stood in a quiet post office parking lot, gripping a thick envelope. Marcus's preliminary report. 47 pages of facts that would change everything. I read it sitting in my car, the same car that no longer had a place in my own garage. Liam's business, it turned out, was a shell. His biggest client, Meridian Financial Group, was under SEC investigation for fraud. 2 other companies he advised had gone bankrupt. His tax returns showed losses disguised by shady shell companies and suspect deductions. But the worst part wasn't the fraud. It was the lie. Liam had told me his kidney failure was genetic, that I might get sick too. He let me believe we shared a curse. That's why I donated mine. But according to the insurance records, Liam's kidney disease came from long-term prescription drug abuse. Painkillers he stole and sold during college. The damage had been entirely self-inflicted. I had sacrificed part of my body, my health, for a son who had destroyed his own. Rage didn't come in a rush. It came quietly, like a cold hand tightening around my spine. I sat there for hours, reading every line, memorizing every detail. When I finally drove back to my house, something in me had changed. I wasn't the woman exiled to the garage anymore. I was the one holding the match. That evening Harold called. "Mrs. Cora, I've been looking into Liam's business deals too. You need to get away from him. Sissy's moving fast. It's going to get messy." "How messy?" "Civil suits, criminal charges, financial disaster. Anyone connected to those funds will be targeted." Closed my eyes. "What would you do if you were me?" He didn't answer for a while. "Then, I'd make sure I was far away when the fallout hits. And I'd make sure Liam couldn't take me down with him." "What about your mother-in-law?" "She can come stay with us. Charlotte doesn't know any of this yet. But she will. And she'll need support." "Perfect." The next morning I walked into the kitchen while Charlotte was sorting pills at the table. "Charlotte," I said, sitting down. "We need to talk." She looked up, startled. "Is everything okay?" "That depends. How much do you know about Liam's business?" Her expression went blank. "What do you mean?" I placed a folder in front of her. Copies of the SEC investigation, the bankruptcies, the tax reports. "I mean, do you know that his biggest client is under federal investigation? That 2 of his other clients went bankrupt? That when this comes out, your assets might be frozen too?" Her hands shook as she read. "This can't be right. He told me, he said we were fine. He lied. To both of us." Charlotte looked up, her eyes glassy. "What am I supposed to do?" I handed her another folder. "Call Harold. He's already expecting you. He's ready to take your mother in. Because when the FBI comes knocking, this house may be seized. Your mother needs to be somewhere safe. You're trying to break up my marriage. I'm trying to save your life." Mrs. Williams, watching the exchange, said something sharp in Mandarin. Charlotte translated slowly. "She wants to call Harold herself. She says she wants to know why no one warned her." "Because no one else knew," I said. "Until I hired someone to find out." "You hired a private investigator?" Charlotte whispered. "I needed to know what Liam was doing with my money in my house. And what I found is that your husband is a criminal." Mrs. Williams stood and walked to the window, looking out at the garage. She spoke again, her voice hard. Charlotte listened, then translated. "She says she's ashamed. In her culture, putting your mother in the garage is the worst kind of dishonor. She's a wise woman." Charlotte wiped tears off her cheeks. "What now?" "Now," I said, "you pack your mother's things. You call your brother. And you get out. Today." Charlotte stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Not the quiet, agreeable woman who let herself be pushed into a garage, but someone dangerous. Someone clear-eyed and done with being used. I pulled out one last folder and laid it gently on the table. "These are the revocation papers for the power of attorney. Janet prepared them. I'll be filing them tomorrow." Charlotte's breath caught. "Liam, he'll know then, won't he?" "Yes," I said calmly. "And when he realizes I know everything, he'll get desperate. Desperate people do stupid things." Mrs. Williams, still at the window, spoke again. Fast, sharp, final. Charlotte didn't even hesitate this time. "She says we pack now and leave tonight. She wants Harold to pick us up directly." "Good." Charlotte reached for her phone with trembling hands and dialed. As she spoke with her brother, I stood and quietly made my way upstairs. My bedroom was no longer mine, but her things were everywhere. Her medication, folded sweaters, pill organizers, lotion bottles. I began packing them, folding with the same practiced care I'd once used on Liam's tiny shirts when he was a boy. Only now there was no warmth. This wasn't affection. It was strategy. By the time Liam came home from his afternoon meeting, 2 suitcases were already waiting near the door. Charlotte was guiding her mother carefully down the stairs. The house had gone quiet. He stepped inside, blinked at the bags, and laughed nervously. "What's all this?" "We're going somewhere." "We're leaving," Charlotte said flatly. Liam froze. "What do you mean, leaving?" I stepped into the hallway holding the folder filled with Marcus's report. She means she knows everything about Meridian Financial, the bankruptcies, your college record. All of it. Liam's face went pale. Mom, what did you do? I did what you never could, I said coldly. I told the truth. The silence was so complete it rang in my ears. He stood in the doorway, eyes darting from Charlotte to me to the folder. Charlotte, wait, he said. His voice taking on that smooth, practiced edge I'd heard in 1,000 sales calls. My mother's under a lot of stress. This whole living arrangement, she's not handling it well. Maybe her memories. Charlotte cut him off. Don't. I saw the documents. I called Harold. I know everything. She's confused. She's not. You are. And I'm done being part of it. Charlotte's voice trembled, but she didn't stop. You lied to me. About your business. Your health. Your past. You made me part of something I never agreed to. I didn't steal anything, Liam snapped. This is her house. She's still living here. In the garage, Charlotte shot back. You put your mother in the garage so your mother-in-law could have her bedroom. It was temporary. Everything with you is temporary, Liam. Your promises. Your explanations. Your love. The only thing that lasts is the damage you cause. She turned away, guiding her mother toward the door. Outside, Harold's car was already waiting. Mrs. Williams didn't look back. Charlotte paused just once, but only to say, "Goodbye." Liam stepped forward. "Charlotte, please. Love you. We can fix this." But she didn't answer. She simply closed the door behind her. He stood staring at the closed door like it had stolen something from him. He didn't turn around when he spoke. "You destroyed my marriage." "No," I said. "I saved it. She's better off without you." He turned now, and I saw the boy he once was for a fleeting moment. Lost, angry, unsure of where it all went wrong. "What do you want from me?" he whispered. I walked over, calm and precise, and handed him the folder. "I want my house back. My life back. My finances back. And if I say no..." "You don't get to say no. The revocation papers go into effect tomorrow. And if you try to stop me, I'll go straight to the SEC and report how you've been hiding business losses behind your elderly mother's pension." His expression cracked, all the smugness bleeding out of him. "You think you've won," he hissed. "But you have no idea what's coming. When the SEC freezes everything tied to my business, they'll freeze this house. Your accounts. Everything. You'll lose it all." "No," I said. "The house is in my name only. My accounts are separate. Janet made sure of that." His jaw dropped. "You hired Janet." "I hired Janet. I hired a private investigator. I got a medical assessment. I called Charlotte's family. I did everything you never expected I would. You put me in the garage and assumed I'd sit quietly." He sank into the couch, the same one we'd picked out together when he was still in college. He buried his face in his hands. "Mom, please. I know I messed up. I was just trying to protect you. Things got out of control." I stepped closer. "Do you know what I thought about while I was lying in that garage? I thought about the day you were diagnosed. How scared I was. How I didn't even hesitate to give you a part of myself. How proud I was to save your life." He looked up, hope flickering behind his eyes. "And then," I said softly, "I thought about what kind of man lets his mother live in a garage. What kind of man builds his life on lies. The kind of man who was never worth saving in the first place." And just like that, the hope died. He flinched like I had slapped him, but I didn't waver. He shook his head slowly, like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You don't mean that." "I mean every word." I walked to the stairs and began carrying down the last of my belongings from what used to be my bedroom. My reading chair. The antique dresser my mother had left me. The photo albums with fading memories pressed between the pages. Liam stayed in his seat, silent, watching me pull my life out of the home I had built, piece by piece. "Where are you going?" he asked finally, his voice small. "Somewhere that appreciates what I have to offer." I didn't owe him any more answers, but I gave one anyway. I'm 62 years old. I'm in excellent health. And now, I have a substantial nest egg that's about to be completely free from your mismanagement. I might buy a new place. I might travel. But one thing I know, I won't waste a single minute worrying about ungrateful children. Mom, he stood up now desperate. You can't just leave. I'm your son. I stopped at the doorway and looked back. He stood there alone in the living room, surrounded by the mess he'd created. His marriage gone. His business collapsing. His life unraveling. He looked smaller somehow. Less like a man. More like a scared boy who finally realized the damage he'd done. No, I said calmly. You're a stranger who shares my DNA. My son died the day he decided his mother was disposable. I turned and walked out without another word. I loaded the last box into my car and drove away, not once looking in the rearview mirror. I didn't need to see the house. It wasn't mine anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. 3 weeks later, I was settled into a bright condo downtown. The building had big windows, a quiet reading room, and neighbors who minded their own business. It had peace. The kind you only find after you've lost everything that once held you back. Harold called to update me. The SEC filed formal charges against Liam and 3 of his partners. Meridian Financial's assets are frozen. A bunch of investors have filed civil suits. He's finished. And Charlotte? Yes. She filed for divorce. She and Mom are staying with us until she finds her own place. Mom's actually doing a lot better. Turns out it wasn't dementia, just over-medication. Her new doctor simplified the whole plan, and she's almost back to herself. And Liam? Harold sighed. The house is in foreclosure. He's been calling Charlotte non-stop. She blocked his number. I said nothing. There was no victory in it. No satisfaction. Just quiet. That evening, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony, the city lights flickering around me. Text buzzed on my phone. Unknown number. Mom, please call me. I need help. I'm sorry for everything. I love you. I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without a second thought. Some people would say I was heartless. That forgiveness is divine. That family should always come first. That every child deserves a second chance. But those people have never been shoved into a garage by the child they gave their life to. They've never been lied to, manipulated, used. Liam wanted forgiveness. He should have thought about that before he shut the door on me. He was right about one thing. I didn't need much. But what I did need, dignity, respect, peace, I deserved to keep. And I would never, ever need him again. That was the end of the story. No dramatic comeback. No mother-son reconciliation over coffee and apologies. Just silence and peace. In the weeks that followed, I began to rediscover the woman I had been before motherhood swallowed me whole. I joined a book club at the library down the street. I took morning walks in the park with no destination in mind. I even signed up for a pottery class, something I hadn't done since high school. My days became simple but mine. No tension behind kitchen doors. No listening through thin walls while others laughed in rooms I'd once called my own. The loneliness I feared never came. In its place was clarity. Sometimes I would think about Liam. About the little boy who used to fall asleep in my lap during thunderstorms. About the teenager who thought the world was his to conquer. About the man who looked me in the eye and said I didn't need much. And maybe I didn't. But I needed to be valued. And the one person who should have known that didn't. He had gambled everything on the idea that I would stay silent. That love meant obedience. That sacrifice came without limit. He had been wrong. He never understood that the same strength that raised him could one day be used to protect myself. I never replied to his message. I never needed to. Because some lessons don't come through forgiveness. They come through consequence. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone who betrayed you is to show them what it looks like to live without you. Thank you for staying until the end. You understand now, don't you? Not all stories end with a hug. Some end with a locked door, and a woman driving away with her head held high.